Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am here with Dr. Piemonte and Dr. Gillespie, and we're going to talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts of personal statement writing. Let's get started. First, I'm going to ask Dr. Piemonte, what are some of the things that you recommend students do not do?
Thanks, Rachel. I would recommend that students do not use this as an opportunity to be what Dr. Gillespie would say, too risky or too creative with the personal statement. So while you do want it to be personal, attention grabbing, and authentic, you do not want it to be a moment where people think that you are potentially a little wacky. They haven't met you there. They haven't met you. They don't know you in context. So you don't want to frighten them away with something that is a little bit too bold or too risky. And I would say that another thing that you don't want to do is to really emphasize what you're looking for in a program. I'm looking for a program that offers me this and offers me that and offers me this. You are applying for a job. You want to say what you are going to bring to that residency program. So you want to say that you are someone who's willing to work hard and make sacrifices and make a meaningful contribution to their residency program and take good care of their patients.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Gillespie, how do you feel about that? What are some things that you are encouraging students not to do on their personal statement?
Well, first of all, this is a hard thing that you guys are doing. And this is one of those things that's going to keep you up at night, and you're going to focus on the words because you've already done everything you can, right? You've already taken your first 3 years of school. You've got your grades, you've got your scores, you've got your research. And so this is the thing you're going to focus on. And so don't over perseverate, but realize you're going to be going through a process, and the process is as important as the final product. So I think a lot of times when we sit down and we start writing, we think, how can I tell a narrative? How can I express how passionate I am about the specialty? And a lot of times people start writing in this obtuse way, and they're writing about how great the specialty is and what the specialty brings and how that has impacted you, or you tell us a story. And what happens is I get halfway down the page and I don't know anything about you. And the only thing I know about you is by abstracting, reading between the lines, and using what I call the transitive property. Neurology is this. I like neurology, therefore I am this. Tell me what you are so I know who you are. You're a hard worker, like Nicole said. You're a hard worker. And so that's really important to me. I think I got lost in my own story there.
Those are great things to be aware of.
Yes.
Nicole?
What I'm hearing you say, Dr. Gillespie, which I think is really important, don't tell an internal medicine program what's so great about internal medicine because they know, because they are in internal medicine. So don't just reiterate why that specialty is awesome because they already know why it's awesome. And then that important point you made about really not getting too flowery with language. Now is not the time to make it sound like you right-clicked on everything and picked a synonym and just did a thesaurus. You want to come across as authentic. So I almost want the language to feel not informal, but more like I'm talking to you or you're telling me a story rather than using big words to sound impressive.
Yeah.
Really good.
And I want to comment on something Nicole said. I'm pointing down to her because she's, this is a job application. And in your past, you've applied for college and you've applied for medical school. But think about a time when you applied for a job. Because a lot of program directors, they're really looking for, like, is this a person who is going to finish the residency? Mm-hmm. Is this a person who will pass the boards? And most importantly, is this going to be the 10% of the residents that I have to give 80% of my time to? So if you can let them know that you will finish the residency, pass the boards, and will very seldom be in their office because there's some sort of drama in the program that you're part of. That's what the program director wants. And if they could click a box and know that you're all of those three, that's good enough. The next level is added value, what makes you special. But that's really hard to tell sometimes. And that's just my opinion, but it's probably right.
I would say for me, the biggest don't is just not regurgitating your CV. They're going to have your CV, and so it's not a time to make a laundry list of the things that you did. If you're trying to draw out that you're a great leader, maybe focus on one experience that was transformative, or tell a little bit more detail about something. Take us through that and how that equates to fit for the specialty.
Mhm.
So let's shift then to what to do. What makes a really good personal statement? Have you ever read a personal statement that almost made you cry? I have.
Yes, I have too. I think the most effective personal statements I have seen are just that. They're personal. So it might be sharing something about your own life that really made it to where you were drawn to that field because of a sick family member or a friend who struggled in a particular way, or a patient encounter that you had that doesn't feel like a cliche. As a third-year medical student, you had this kind of cliche encounter, but a deeply meaningful one. And so the personal statements that have been authentic, personal, and really kind of speak to what's most important to you, where you find meaning and purpose, have been what I think the most effective. They're also ones that flow beautifully together, where the story at the top doesn't seem totally disconnected from everything else and then we never hear about again, but that there is this theme of you that just keeps appearing in every paragraph. That I finished reading it knowing kind of exactly who you are and how you're going to be as a resident.
Awesome. What about you, Dr. Gillespie? What makes it good for you, or
Yeah.
great, I should say?
Yes, I'm impacted by maybe 1 in 4 first drafts. And for any of you who've ever gone through the process with me, first I look at your CV, and then I have you answer those questions. And in those questions, you're writing to me. And when I hear that authentic, genuine, direct voice, and I feel like you're writing to me, hopefully you trust me. So you're just writing to me because you trust me. And then the next thing I do is I read your personal statement. And then a lot of times the personal statement doesn't feel authentic, doesn't feel genuine. The language isn't direct, and I don't know anything about you. And then I always take you back to those statements that you wrote to me. And so, like, choose who you're writing to, create this person in your head that you're talking to. I think a lot of times when you think you're throwing it out to these people who have all this power over you, and they're going to determine whether you get the residency of your dream, you can get caught up in that and you can lose your voice. Everybody's voice is different, but a direct, real voice. And what I really want to do, at least for me, is when I finish reading that personal statement and I look at you, does it reflect the person I've come to know over the last year? And when it hits and it's good, I'll tell you.
I think those are great points. And I do want to try to give an example of what is the difference between something that's effective and a hook in the beginning versus something that can be cliche or hokey or a little goofy.
Or risky.
Too risky. And sometimes that looks like starting the personal statement with a question. Who am I? I've always asked myself this. We don't want to go there. Saying something like, I was standing in the hallway waiting for, that kind of like in the moment story doesn't usually, it seems a little bit forced to me. And you can actually start off your personal statement much more simply. You might even say some that I've liked were, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you I never wanted to go into family medicine. But it's a personal statement about going into family medicine. So that's a very simple statement. It's not hokey, but it's kind of like, oh, they're telling me they didn't want to go into family medicine and now they are. I want to read more. What changed over that time period? So I would err on the side of a more simple opening, and then maybe we can embellish things later on, because if it's too in your face in the beginning, that's it. I don't really want to read more of it.
I totally agree with you, Nicole, because a lot of times I think students want to come out with this grand opening hook. But you know what? You're not Steven Spielberg. I mean, you're not George Lucas. You're not in a galaxy far, far away. You are not some of you may be. But what I find is sometimes when I get to word 800, we can talk about the length of these in a second, I find the perfect opening sentence. And I'm like, let's take this paragraph, move it up to the top, because you're getting to the heart of what you want to say, who you are, and you're opening it up. And so sometimes you have these hidden jewels in you. So everybody has a different process. One of my processes is just write it, get it out of you. Whatever you think you need to say, heavily edit. Other people, they're going to want to do it perfect from the beginning. But understand your process while you go through your discernment, and don't feel bad if your first essay is bad. I mean, sometimes you write a bad first essay, throw it in the garbage can and say, good, I got that out of me. Now let me try again. Right. But sometimes there's a lot of salvageable things in there that you don't know are entries in or intros.
Yeah. Very good. Another point, Dr. Piemonte?
I was just going to ask your opinion of what you would think is a good length for personal statements.
I like 1 page. Oh, sorry.
No, I would agree. I was going to say 750 to 850 words, I think, is appropriate. I think you lose the reader if I'm looking at 2 pages and I have to read this thing. I think you could say it and be concise in that number.
Yes, I would agree with that totally. And so sometimes that is 1 page, single space in a Word document that's, 12-point font. The reason I say that is because when you copy and paste it into Eris, it's just in a big text box. You won't know how many pages it is. So 750 to 850 words is good because it's more about word count than it is about actual pages, since you'll be pasting it into a text box.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I would say when you're thinking about your 750 words, which I totally agree with, think about how many minutes the program director is going to spend reading it. And that's how you want to think about how you want to develop your points. And I always say 6,000 applications, they're going to try to filter it down to 600. And then how many minutes can they spend on each application deciding which are the 200 who get interviews or whatever the number is. I know for surgery, it's like 65 out of 3,000. And so they're going to spend no more than a couple minutes reading it to make the cut. Mm-hmm. And then they will spend more time reading it before your interview. So just one thing I would say, if you can, put something, quote, interesting somewhere in there, because it can be a talking point. Sometimes when I would interview a student, I would circle one thing on their personal statement to begin the conversation, just to see if they can have a conversation about something that they said they were an expert in. And if they can't have a conversation with me about that, then I'm wondering about everything they've said.
Wonderful. Well, we are out of time for today. I want to thank Dr. Piemonte and Dr. Gillespie for these do's and don'ts of personal statements. And we will certainly be sharing more resources with you, M4s, class of 2023. We're excited to lay eyes on your personal statements. Thank you.
Thank you.